Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, I am delighted to be talking with author, creator, martial artist as well, Doug Marcaida. Doug, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I will go ahead and disclose that this is kind of a part two chat because you and I are doing kind of a primer here today. And
Hmm.
then we're going to stretch our legs, have more of a longer conversation for another show that I help with, the Dollar Bent Bandits. So listeners can
Uh-huh.
check out one, the other, and both and follow the work that you do.
All right. I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, that sounds great. Sounds great. The book project that we're talking about on this episode is Lineage. So I'll give you the chance on our full chat to go into kind of your background and your lineage, but I'm curious about the creative inspiration for the project.
Yeah, the inspiration for this whole thing is because as a judge on a bladesmithing show on History Channel called Forge and Fire, I've been inspired to tell stories because I saw that, when it comes to a bladesmith making a blade that they create, I see its parallels to life, right? They have an idea, they put it in the forge, a womb, and they beat it into shape, the hardness and everything else, the tempering and everything. It's their child. And then when they're done with
Hmm.
that, they sharpen it and they present it to the world. It's just like we present our kids. But I go, imagine if a blade could come back to their bladesmith, to their creator, and tell the stories because you never know who's using it, what they use it for. Now, when I
Yeah.
was doing the show, a lot of bladesmiths says, "Well, you know what? When they're talking about their signature designs, you say sometimes I let the steel tell me what it wants to be." And the other judge goes, "That means they don't have control of what they're doing. You're beating it into shape, right?" But that spoke to me because you see. Being a Filipino martial artist, and we are very blade oriented, being a blade designer, the inspirations that I have for creating the blade based on its functions, the way I study different martial arts and cultures about blade making, it's a very sacred thing. In other
Mhm.
parts of the world, the blade is something that can be used for a status symbol. It could be symbolic of the strength that one has in their tribe. It could be also where you are with it when you see it in different flags all over the world, right? Also, it can be used for love. It's used for survival. We use to cut up our meat. We use it to build homes and everything else. So you never know what it's used for. But the one same blade could be used for so many things. So seeing all this on being a part of Forge, I realized, you know what? Every blade has a story to tell. So why don't we give the blade a chance to tell its stories? And that's how Lineage came to be.
I love it. I love it. I am in already. I love the metaphor of the blade and uh, how you can use it and think about it in so many ways. You're talking about that forging process, and I'm always curious about creative processes. There are these things inside us that have to find a way out in some way. What was the collaborative process like for the project?
First up, this was something that it was stories to tell, because being on Forge and Fire, seeing all the different iconic weapons from history, and all the different stories, I go, wow, there's something to be told here. But how do I put this in comic book form? So I reached
Mm-hmm.
out to some friends, and they connected me with Kid Heroes. And when I met with Patricio, who runs it, it was a very Filipino-centric comic books a group that they have over there. And I go, perfect. I'm going to go back to my roots. Originally, this story didn't really have a culture for it. So I go for my first book, rather series. I'm going to actually, pick from my own personal culture, my Filipino culture, where I come from, how I learned my bladed arts that's directly connected to my culture. And it was perfect. It was synergy because they actually had the right artist who, when I was just telling him the structure of the outline, automatically the artist came back with these images. I'm like, I didn't even think about that. The guy was very in tune with my culture. The writers were able to bring it back from a cultural standpoint of where it's coming from. And then, of course, my own story that's related to it. I'm an immigrant. I came from the Philippines and I moved over here, and how all this ties into that. I was very blessed to find the right people to tell this story.
Nice, nice. Love that. I'm a longtime comics reader. I've been reading them since I was seven.
Nice.
What made comics kind of the space that you wanted to tell this story in?
That's very interesting. I grew up in the Philippines and I couldn't afford any comic books. The only comic books that I had a chance to look at were the ones that my friends had. So I'd live through them, but I could never follow a series.
Yeah.
This was really supposed to be a TV show. This was the pilot for a whole plan. I was talking with my producer then. But then what happened was COVID hit and he left, the way the industry is, he left the whole film industry. So I'm like, oh, well, what do we do? Let's continue on this way. But I thought about it in my art. History is always told through oral history. That was the first television, right? In the fires, they talk about it. Then you have in the caves where they started putting images, right? And with
Mhm.
all history come the images that you have. So pretty much that's like a comic book. Now, in today's world, we can say, well, we have the digital videos and all that. Well, that's great. And it's even great in film. But sometimes if you were to think of something like this to move on, what's a VHS tape? What's a Betamax if it's in there? What's a DVD, right? Or digital. If you don't have that format, you can't see it. But if you have something through oral history, if nobody's there to tell you, I can tell you about, shall we say, Michelangelo. I can tell you what the pictures are like, what I saw in the Sistine Chapel, all this beautiful art. But that's oral because he says, as long as you can read it, you can use your imagination. Everything, nothing can beat your imagination, but you'll still not see what I have. In comic books, you see the art, you see the words. So that will live forever. It's a medium to where I can really project what I want. You can still see a lot of different things, but at least you can project my words. I can project the imagery that I have in there. So it's a very unique way of doing, unlike just a book where I have to use my imagination. This I'm very specific to that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of why I've connected with it so much and love it too. The art alongside the words, and I imagine it was really fulfilling and exciting to get to see that art come back from the
Oh my
collaborative
gosh.
team.
Absolutely. And to see the kind now I had no point of reference. Okay. When I was looking at the art, so I'm like, wow, it looks great. But I really had no point of reference until I started getting into it. I started to realize what cover art was and the different artists that were involved. I released the idea of this in a panel at San Diego Con. And then we actually released a physical one in New York Con. And then was invited because of this. I just came back from Athens, Greece, where they had the Athens Con. And it was just amazing to slowly start to understand the world that follows comic books, the passion they
Mm.
have, the imagination, the cosplay, because they're so into the characters. I mean, I was drawn in. As a matter of fact, being in that world totally pulled me into where there's a part of this comic book world, this comic verse, the cosplay. It's really part of my story now, the cult of
Oh, I love
cosplay.
it. Love that. Love it. Yes, the con culture is quite welcoming. I've made my way into cons as well, and so glad that you're part of that. And there's so much here to unpack and to be part of, and perhaps one day a Lineage cosplay. This
I'm
could happen.
hoping. Well, here's the thing. Every blade has a story to tell. You see, I'm a knife designer. So
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
my knife designs that I have, I've got, so many are going to be part of my world and part of this comic series. So that not only will they see it, but they'll see it in action. I design my blades for the way I teach them and how I train them and how they're supposed to function. So a lot of those movements, this is where I need, they're like my children. And I'm gonna say, you're gonna tell this story. Now you over there, you're gonna be part of this. And they're all like, Dad, put me in, put me in. Well, it's got to match. But they will
Uh,
be there. And that's part of it because I designed the real things. But we will have
yeah.
the cosplay version also simply because for me, that's just one of the things that I prefer to do, right? Enjoy the motion. It's the art form. And definitely when I saw the passion that these cosplay players were doing, how they take so much time in making their costumes, the care that they do. I'm like, wow. And it empowers them. They
Yeah.
truly feel like they become who they wear. And I love that, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. I have a kind of a nice cross play because I collected knives as a kid, and I
Mm,
was always very interested when I found a blade that had a character on it that I loved. I remember having a Zorro blade and
hmm.
Lash LaRue and several Western characters and other comics heroes. So these worlds they have lovely intersections, I think.
Yes, they do, especially what I do. I'm an instructor of my arts. So with everything, I would love to share that. So here's one thing. I was in a When I was in Athens Con, they asked me if I could do a lightsaber class for kids. So we filled
Hmm.
that up. We had a group there that had lightsabers. I'm a Star Wars fan, so I just showed my motion with lightsabers. Well, with kids, it was like herding cats everywhere, but it was so much fun. Then the next day we had it with the adults, and the adults that showed up were all Star Wars. They were part of the Star Wars parade. So much so when I was done with that class, they asked me to lead the Star Wars parade in there. It was amazing, right? So when I was showing them all this, come on, everybody do this, and they were like, "Not really. You don't know how to use it? Oh, okay. Well, guess what? Now you will." So we have a deal where I'm going to actually teach them how to use the lightsabers, so that it just makes the pageantry that much more exciting.
Love it, love it. And those blades definitely tell a story. You automatically know what side of the story you're on when you see the color of the blade. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I have a final question for our shorter talk, but looking forward to expanding more when we talk next. Any shout outs to the creative team that you'd like to mention, as
Oh,
well
yeah.
as where people can find the book, support the work, and learn more?
Yeah. We can be found on kidheroes.es. That's the website where you can find the copy of this book, right? Our first issue here. Shout out to my guys over there, the whole creative team of Patricio, Justin, and Earl are the great writers that do this. Felix Morales is the artist that does this. And thanks to Jeff Haas for putting this all together. That's my team because one of the things we're trying to do is this is an experiment for me, just to be able to dip into this, see if it's something I love. But the reception, everyone that hears my story says we want more. So I know I'm onto something, and that's all I need to do. I mean, when I tell them about the story, like what? It's the blade that's telling the story. I go, yeah, and the blade will continue to do so because it's a witness. But then what about where's the story lead? Well, that's issue one. Issue two is it expands even more, and different blades show up. So I know I have a good story here, and I'm excited that these guys are helping me pass it on and share it.
Absolutely. And I'll also shout out appreciation for the knowledge, the authenticity, the background that you bring to the story. Very excited to see how it all comes together.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to telling more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And may the conversation continue.